to reason. Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah, gotta get away from this illusion for the sake of the world. This delusion, it's gotta go. Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Atheist Experience. We are live. It is Sunday, January 25th-ish? 5th on the nose,
Yeah.
not ish.
Yeah.
2015. I am your host, Matt Dillahunty. Joining me this week, Jen Peeples. Hey. And you were on last week.
I know, I'm having this overwhelming sense of deja vu.
Yeah, Jen had to fill in for me at the last minute, and I greatly appreciate it because there was something very important that I had to do. But I'm back.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have some fun, take some calls. There's, I guess, a couple of announcements to get out of the way first.
Yeah, so next week we're going to have a special guest on the Atheist Experience, Dr. Darrell Ray, who's been here before.
Yes.
And he's going to talk about...
Sex.
Yeah.
I figured because it's Darrell.
Yeah, but it's really interesting, some research he's been doing. He's going to publish a book, or he has published a new book about it, and it's about the myth of porn and sex addiction. So it
And
should be
Darrell Ray is
interesting.
the author of Sex and God.
Yes.
And the God Virus. And we've had him on before. He's a good friend of mine, so I don't think he'll be upset that I'm teasing him about constantly talking about sex, because it's actually an important topic.
It is.
And the guilt and shame involved and how it's exploited by religion and the misinformation that people have about everything. It was kind of funny this morning. I was sitting there, getting ready to go out and run my pre-show errands, and Mary tweeted something about. Basically, there was a conversation that she has repeatedly where somebody says, "Oh, she must be straight because she's dating a guy," and then she's like, "Oh, what about bisexuals?" And I did a quick comment about boxes and how they're very convenient to put things in boxes, but if you begin assuming that everything is then box shaped because it's in a box, you have made a terrible mistake. It's unfortunate. We need to be able to label things in order to make it easier to communicate and easier to understand, and that's fine. But we have to be ready to recognize that we may be doing an injustice to some categories, some people, by oversimplifying or thinking everything needs to mesh in one box.
Yeah.
All right, so this is a live call-in show out of Austin, Texas, and we have callers already waiting, so we'll go ahead and start jumping in. Tom in Oak Harbor, Washington, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Matt. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty well.
Hey, I'm loving the beer, by the way.
Thank you. It's one of those things where when I had a regular day job, it never occurred to me to let it grow out, but what's that? Dinner! Oh, Frank is yelling at me from the other room to remind people that after the show is over, we get together and go to dinner at El Arroyo, and the address is at the bottom of the screen. We'll be there around 6 o'clock or so if anybody wants to have dinner and conversation. But anyway, I'm sorry, Tom, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Hey, so I'm calling from Oak Harbor, Washington. We're up here in the Pacific Northwest. There's a gentleman here in Seattle who's gaining some popularity in these parts. He does lectures, and he's appeared on the radio a few times. He goes by the pseudonym of Jersey Flight. And what Jersey Flight is talking about nowadays is the end of theism. And I've talked to him extensively about this. And he seems to believe, and I agree with him, that theism and really any kind of God belief only exists in the form of discussion. And that's the only way that we can even talk about God. And he is foreseeing a time very soon that there won't be any theism left on the planet. And I guess I'm calling you guys because this is something we talk about on this show all the time. I watch every week. What is your feeling about that? Are we really seeing the end of theism?
Well, so one of the things that you said that kind of confused me is that theism only exists in the conversation. I don't necessarily know what you mean by that, because when we talk about theism, we're talking about theism is the position where one actually believes that a God exists. And so these these are real beliefs that people have. Is his contention that people don't actually have these beliefs? They just say they have them?
I guess I should be more specific and talk about God beliefs. Yes, he says that they only exist in the form of discussion, or basically what he's saying is God beliefs only exist in people's minds. That when you
All beliefs only exist in people's minds.
No, but when you question people, when you question a theist about their gods, they'll tell you that their God does this, says this, looks like this, and yet when you ask them for a reference, okay, tell me more about it, it only exists in the form of discussion.
Yeah, I'm still not quite comprehending what the issue is, what the problem is.
Let me see if I can understand what you're trying to say. Is it that you think that someone's concept of a God is unique to them? Yes, that's kind of what I'm saying. Okay, well, yeah, that's actually been demonstrated with research in an fMRI machine.
Okay, but I guess my bigger question was, do you guys think that theism in general is going away? Is it dying?
Well, I don't think it'll ever be dead.
Yeah, neither.
But I think it will diminish. So what we're really talking about is, hey, some people believe something. They believe a God exists, or they believe Bigfoot's real. No matter what it is, they are holding some opinion on a claim. And I think that unless something dramatic happens, unless we get some good evidence to justify these sorts of beliefs, that the trend of fewer and fewer people accepting this is likely to continue. I think that reason and reality are likely to win out in the end for the majority. There are still people who believe the earth is flat.
Yeah.
There are people who believe in all kinds of bizarre, inflated earth theories and stuff like that don't have any evidential support. And for me, it's just, we're human, we're going to make mistakes, and there will always be, almost certainly, mistakes in our thinking, and that's going to cause people to believe things when they don't have a good reason. But I think one of my goals is, to not just to diminish the amount of theistic belief that we have in society. That is one of the goals. I'd like people to believe things for good reasons and believe things that are demonstrably correct. But a more important thing is to diminish the effect that theistic beliefs have on public policy, on how people live their lives and how they interact with others.
Yeah. Well, I certainly agree with that, absolutely. Just an interesting guy, and if you do get a chance, you might want to check out Jersey Flight. He has a website, and just a really interesting guy. And I like talking to him, and I like talking to you guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Cool, thanks. Sure. I'll give Jersey Flight a look. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks.
All right, so we've got Caesar in Orlando. Thanks for waiting.
Hey, how's it going, Matt, and how's it going, Joey? Just want to first congratulate you guys for what you're doing. I try to look at you guys at YouTube every time that I can.
Oh, thanks so much.
Your producer told me to make my point quickly because it is a topic that you guys already covered before. So I basically want to talk about, the morality issue, the moral values. I've been having this argument with my religious friends, and they keep coming up with where you get your morals from. How do you tell right from wrong, if you're an atheist? And I know that secular morality is superior. It's just that sometimes I fall short on the arguments. So I would like your take on that, if you don't mind.
Well, you can tell them that you get your morals from the same place that they get their morals, which is from your parents. So we're social creatures, and we transmit moral values and the ability to make moral judgments from one generation to the next. So, it's not something you read out of a book. It's something you develop the ability to do, this idea that you can make moral judgments. You develop that ability by having your current morality challenged at different stages in your life. And
right.
So if your morality is never challenged because you just read the rules in a book and you follow the rules, then you're stuck in in a pretty elementary stage of morality, and that's one of the things that makes secular morality superior to religious morality, because we don't read a book and get our morals out of a book.
I see. Yeah. I've been beating them, in all the other arguments, the cosmological argument, the so-called fact on the Bible. But when it comes to right and wrong or good and evil, they seem to have like an upper ground on me. But I've been, trying to get more reason into the conversation. So, okay.
Yeah.
No,
well, here's one thing I think is kind of interesting. So Matt and I are friends. So why would I need a book to tell me that I'm supposed to care about my friend?
Right.
And if you need a book to tell you that you're supposed to care about your friends, there's something wrong with your morality.
Yeah, the topic of morality is something that I actually find is considerably easier than a lot of people make it. And I think religions have gone through this process of sort of muddying the waters in the discussions. I don't know if we'll ever get to where you can actually see me on camera, but if we did, you'd be able to see that I'm trying to be as nice as possible about this difficult issue. I don't need to see myself to talk. It's fine.
No, I understand. And
so one of the things about secular morality is that Jen had mentioned you get it from your parents primarily. I think that if you want to go deeper than that to what we're actually talking about, I've given a talk about the superiority of secular morality. It's online. It's not every version of it is completely correct. I've modified my thinking on a few things over the years, but there's some good starter information there. One of the key things is that secular morality has us as the focus, whereas religious moralities, there's no guarantee that we are the focus of anything. If morality is about the consequences of our actions and how they affect us, and whether or not we're doing harm to each other, whether or not we're helping societies benefit and grow, then that needs to be the focus. And with religious moral systems, to the extent, and I would argue that religious moral systems aren't systems at all. They don't provide you a mechanism by which to evaluate new situations. They can only tell you about the situations, thou shalt not steal. Okay, that's really neat. And I happen to agree that I would label it immoral to steal, generally speaking. But that's not very robust. It doesn't give me much in the way of context. It doesn't talk about potential exceptions. It doesn't consider situations. And most importantly, it doesn't tell me why. It just says, this is, thou shalt not steal. Well, why shouldn't I steal? And it's when you get into those questions of why, the possible answers are, well, because God said so. Or if you like some of the precepts, instead of being because God said so, their answer would be it's because God isn't a thief, and so you're trying to be in line with God's character. When I think that that doesn't benefit us in any way. If instead we look at, hey, what are the consequences for myself if I steal something? And I'm not just talking about getting caught. And what are the consequences for others if I steal something? And how does this benefit or detract from society? There's this idea of thinking globally and acting locally. Well, one of the base questions that I ask myself when I'm trying to figure out is something moral is, if everyone else in the world did what I just did, would we be better off or worse off? Or the same? I mean, is it something that there isn't a moral evaluation for?
Right, yeah, and I would like to ask you something, because it was just last week when I got this question posed to me. I was talking to an ex-friend of mine. I don't think he's my friend anymore, but he, when I was trying to explain my views on why I was an atheist, he threw this question out of the blue, like, where do you get your morals from? Where's your moral compass? I kind of paused a little bit, and I must to admit that I didn't know how to answer it in a very concise, direct, and fast way. But I just say to him, hey man, I just think what I do, and I try to consider, the consequences of my actions. I mean, it has to come from that. But at that point, I was, I gotta be honest, I was mumbling a little bit because I couldn't think and talk as fast as he was, trying to interrupt me. So.
Well, I mean, if you go through what Matt was describing, which is, this is not something, I guess, that I think theists do go through this process most of the time, but they also fall back on this, pointing to their rule book and say, this is where I get my morals. That's not really where they get their morals, but it's such a convenient thing to point to and say, here, this is my absolute standard.
Yeah, I mean, how would I answer a question like that, which is, in a very short matter?
So let me give you two things. First, when people ask me where I get my morals from, I've already answered this rather succinctly by saying I get my morals by a considered evaluation of the consequences of my action and how it affects myself and others. The ultimate authority for what is or isn't moral are the facts about reality. We are physical beings in a physical universe, and there are just facts about what happens. If I hit you over the head with a hammer, there are consequences of that, and that's how we evaluate. But when it comes to dealing with the people who are asking you, how do you get your morals or where do you get your morals from, I tend to like to ask them, where do they get their morals from? Because by and large, they'll say, oh, well, they come from God. Okay, well, why do you accept what you think God has said? We'll set aside the question of whether or not God has ever said anything, but why do you consider that good? Oh, well, God's good. How do you know that? Oh, because he wrote it on my heart that he's good. Well, how did you figure out that God is the good one and let's say Satan is the evil one? How did you make that distinction? Because if their answer is that they're determining that God is good because God has told them that he's good or God has written his moral standard on their heart, then wouldn't it also be true that if Satan wrote his moral standard on their heart, that Satan would be viewed as good? Anybody is going to be judged perfect by their own standard.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good. I'll try to find this episode on YouTube and take notes. But man, thank you so very much, and I'm just glad that I got through this time, and I hope that you guys keep doing what you're doing, and I hope more people keep waking up like I did. Thank you so very much, guys.
Sure, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's come up a lot.
Yeah.
And it even when I engage with theists, it's like they don't always get it. I mean, it's come up in several of the debates. We've raised that point. I think it's a good one that some people are going to grasp. If they're having difficulty in any conversation like this, one of the things that you can do is take a step away from the actual subject matter and use an analogy. Like, hey, I got this yardstick, and so I measured my living room, and it turned out to be that it's 4 yards. Well, how do you know that that yardstick is correct? Oh, well, because it's based on this, because this is kind of arbitrary.
Yeah.
And if somebody started selling a whole, if we started selling a whole bunch of yardsticks that were based on some other standard, then everybody would be measuring wrong and thinking that they're measuring right. There needs to be something firm that you appeal to, and you can't just judge something by its own standard by saying, this is my yardstick. Let me hold it up to the yardstick for the guy who measured out this yard, and look, they're the same. Because you don't know whether or not he's right. But.
Yeah. Well, and one of the points I was going to make about this whole exercise of examining whether you think something is moral or not, that exercise is really valuable because it clarifies exactly why you think something is moral or not, and it gives you practice in evaluating moral actions.
I don't think the topic is overly difficult. I think the process is difficult,
Yeah,
and then we are lazy. It's easier to rely on, this is wrong because my folks said so, or God said so, or whatever.
And so, I think the process of examining these questions is extremely valuable. Especially when you have a kid growing up and they're learning how to decide if something's right or wrong. There's no substitute for that. So, I mean, reading it in a book, that doesn't get you there.
And it brings up another example that I've used before, which is out there, and I don't have to repeat myself over and over on the show, but I'll do this quick. If you have two kids who are out at dinner and they're misbehaving, and they leave, and for one of the kids, the the guardian says, okay, if you behave the next time we go out to dinner, you'll get dessert, and if you misbehave, then you'll get a spanking or something. And the other kid, they sit down and explain to them that, hey, your actions have consequences on these people around you. How would you feel to engage some empathy if you were sitting over there and somebody was doing what you did? And this kid now has an understanding. When you take them both out to dinner, they're both going to behave, but which one is more moral? Which one has a better understanding of the why behind the action? And I have a big problem with kind of passing on this carrot and stick mentality that people take away from their religion and pass on to their kids because they don't think it builds
because one
good
kid,
character.
As soon as the carrot and stick are removed, he's likely to misbehave again. The other kid now understands why he should behave.
Yeah, my reason for behaving at dinner is so that Mom will buy me dessert. Mom's not here today, so why the hell should I behave? Yeah, I mean, it's just, that seems so obvious that we can do a better job. And it's why, the Bible and other books aren't good moral guides. But. Dalton in Spokane, thanks for calling.
Hey, Matt.
Hey.
I'm an atheist. I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller. I've just had something on my mind that I've been thinking about, and I wanted to kind of pass it through you, let you see if you had any opinions on my reasoning.
Okay.
Well, I've been listening to a lot of debates with you, especially with apologists, and one thing that it seems like to me is that a lot of apologists love to take something that people think is important, like morality or reason, or knowledge, and they hold it hostage, and they say, you guys can't have this without accepting our belief in God.
Right.
And specifically, I feel like you get that a lot in the presuppositionalists, because you see that they say that about knowledge. You can't have knowledge without accepting that there's someone who knows everything, that there's this absolute knowledge that you magically have, and without that, nothing makes sense. But I've seen, I feel like there's been a lot of not a consistent response to that I feel it deserves, and I feel like I've got one, but I don't know if it's already a thing that's out there. So let's kind of lay it out. Would that be all right?
Yeah, we can hit that real quick. I will warn you that when it comes to particularly presuppositional apologetics, most people have had more than their fill, especially after producing some rather lengthy review videos of my debate with Cy, and I've still got Matt Slicks to do too. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, basically, my presuppositions say, how do you know anything? Could you be wrong about everything, et cetera, et cetera? The answer I feel is no, because I know that I or some consciousness, something that produces this experience that I call consciousness must exist.
Okay, that's already a mistake.
Okay.
That's basically René Descartes. I think, therefore I am. That's,
exactly.
Sure. And Hobbes pointed out that René's entire argument is itself contingent upon logic being reasonable. Because if, in fact, the logical absolutes aren't true, he has to presuppose the logical absolutes in order to make the argument that he must necessarily exist because he experiences something. So you can't begin with that point. Basically, this gets to what I was pointing out during the debate with Cy, that there are a handful of things that, yes, in fact, we do presuppose them. They work out for us. They seem to allow us to live the life that we experience in a way that is consistent and reliable. And this appeal or need for absolute certainty is, I think, a big red herring. It doesn't matter. We live a life where we understand things probabilistically. We have good reasons to do this based on some assumptions. And what the precepts are doing is saying they have a foundation, the one and only foundation for things like the logical absolutes, and that nobody else can provide. And they don't actually demonstrate either of those points. They don't demonstrate that they have a solution, and they don't demonstrate that nobody else can have. And the honest response by saying, I don't have a solution to the problem of hard solipsism. I do, in fact, engage in some presuppositions that the logical absolutes are true, that reality is real, that that my experience of it is accurate. is as close as you can get. And so they're basically taking a problem that philosophers and others have acknowledged, hey, this is a real problem, we don't seem to have a solution for it, and they're claiming to have a solution and claiming nobody else can without proving either one. It's kind of like they're saying, I mean, I realize we have a solution to Fermat's last theorem now, but before we did, it would be like a handful of preachers saying that they have a proof for Fermat's last theorem, and nobody else can have any proof other than theirs, but they're not going to share theirs with us. That's really kind of what the precepts are doing.
Mm-hmm. And I remember from one of the debates I saw that Sai was going to respond to the Cartesian discussion, but either was cut off or didn't actually get into it. So I didn't know whether his response was something that was really logical or just something that apologists come up with.
I don't know, but if I had to hazard a guess, I'd say there's an error in it.
Okay. But what I was, I guess, going at is there a word for assumptions that you make because they allow you to act when failing to assume them or when assuming that they're not true would leave you paralyzed? Because, for instance, if we didn't assume that logic works at a basic level, we wouldn't be able to evaluate anything.
Yeah. What you may be talking about, depending on how you phrase it, is a philosophical concept known as properly basic. I'd recommend you go out and look up properly basic to see what you think. I used to kind of have rejected. A lot of this gets to be a little bit of wordplay that tends to be used to strengthen arguments when it would be much better for us to just acknowledge we don't know. Right.
It just seems like, also the basis of these assumptions, I just lay out a couple of them real quick. The assumption that reality is comprehensible, the assumption that reality is consistent with itself, that it follows the laws of logic, that the problem with hard solipsism is solved by making the assumption that other people have a similar basis to yourself, that other people are analogous to yourself.
Yeah, these are generally just kind of like the practical necessities of, I can't demonstrate the truth of this in the way we would other things. These seem to be true. They seem to be, reliable. They produce consistently reliable results when we assume them, et cetera. So I'd look up properly basic and go from there.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll really appreciate getting the chance to talk to you, and you guys have a great show.
All right, thanks, Dalton.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm glad that didn't turn into a 4-hour conversation about the logical absolutes.
Yes.
Because Jen would have killed me.
I would have been stabbing you with this pen.
I believe it. And plus, when I got home, I'd just get an angry glare from the wife. So we've got Jeff in New Jersey. Thanks for waiting.
Hi, Matt and Jen. I was really hoping earlier that Martin and Russell would be on today because it's not a big deal. But
all right, screw you then.
Thanks.
You're stuck with us.
Sorry?
You're stuck with us.
We published the schedule ahead of time, right?
I'm interested in your guys' opinion as well on this.
And actually, that's a good point. Let Jen make this point real quick.
We published the schedule ahead of time, right?
I know that now.
Yeah, so
Okay.
if you go to atheist-experience.com, there's a schedule for about the next 4 or 5 weeks. It's not always correct because like last week I had to get a substitute, but it's generally pretty close to correct.
Gotcha. Okay. So Martin and Russell were discussing a few episodes ago, they got a call regarding a hypothetical of if a church were to sue over not being able to perform gay marriages, whether that would be a violation of separation of church and state. And I thought I just wanted to call in and get your opinion on this. Was actually an issue in a real case in North Carolina that ended up being rendered moot by the Supreme Court not taking that slew of cases back in September, October regarding gay marriage. But the United Church of Christ in North Carolina was suing the state because the state's gay marriage ban criminalized priests officiating gay marriages, and the United Church of Christ feels that people are entitled to be married. So I thought I wanted to get your guys' take on that.
Are you sure the marriage ban criminalized the churches performing marriages with gay couples?
Yeah, I've got the opinion in front of me. It's
so what were the criminal penalties associated with doing this?
I'm trying to get to that part of the.
Well, while you're looking that up, kind of the specifics of it, which I'll let you get to in a minute. There's something about this that on the surface seems like it might be a good kind of end around to say, hey, by not allowing us to marry people, you are violating our religious freedoms, and so you get that worked in. The problem with it is marriage, from the government standpoint, churches are irrelevant, religions are irrelevant. You have a marriage license. It is a contract from the state. And so if we allow same-sex couples to marry, that we should not and essentially could not ever require churches to marry same-sex couples. That would be a violation of their religious freedom. You can't force somebody to perform a ceremony that is in opposition to their religious freedom. And churches can still have wedding ceremonies for same-sex couples all they want. They always could, because a church ceremony does not a marriage make. Despite what they'd like to tell you. The marriage is made in the license. It is a recognition by the state. And so these issues are pretty much separate. So it's not really a good avenue of attack. But if the law that you're talking about prohibits churches from having a ceremonial marriage for a same-sex couple, then I think that would be a violation of the religious liberties, because that church isn't necessarily required to provide a marriage license. Actually, they don't provide marriage license. You get that from the state.
Well, and that's the thing. That's a clear violation of the Constitution, because irrespective of whether it's a same-sex couple or a heterosexual couple, because the law can't dictate to a church what kind of ceremonies it can perform for its congregants. So. It's really not a marriage equality issue so much as it is the state is stepping in and telling a church what you can and can't do, and there are real limitations on what they can do with that.
If what's actually happened with the law is that the state is telling churches that they cannot grant marriage licenses and sign marriage licenses for same-sex couples, then they're not violating their religious liberty. They're just saying marriage licenses are a state issue, and we're willing to let you sign them as officiants and have people turn them in, provided you are in compliance with the state's regulations. It's kind of the same thing as we've seen with some religious sects wanting to use illicit drugs. We're very sorry that your religion requires you to use something that's illegal, but that doesn't mean that you get to do it. And you can extend this to the extremes to say, my religion requires that I sacrifice, 4-year-olds. So you have to allow me to do that in order to have my religious freedom. And the answer is hell no. Not only are we not going to allow you to do it, but if you do it, we're going to prosecute you because your particular religious belief is stupid and harmful.
Gotcha. I've got that language, by the way.
Sure.
Okay.
It's 2 parts. I'll try and read them through very quickly. Solemnization without a license is unlawful. No minister, officer, or any other person authorized to solemnize a marriage under the laws of this state, North Carolina, shall perform a ceremony of marriage between a man and a woman, or shall declare them to be husband and wife until there is delivered to that person a license for the marriage of said persons, signed by the Register of Deeds. Every minister, officer, or any other person authorized to solemnize a marriage under the laws of this state who marries any couple without a license being first delivered to that person as required by law, or after the expiration of such a license, or who fails to return such license to the deed of registers is guilty of a first-degree misdemeanor and fined $200.
And see, I'd have to know what they mean by solemnizes, because to me, this does kind of read like you can't even perform the ceremony, whether because to say you can't solemnize any marriage without a license. Well, how would you do that? I mean, so that does seem to be ceremonial. So it may be that the language of this is just horrible. But I don't know.
I agree.
I don't think this is going to get us any closer to either marriage equality or the banning of marriage equality. This really is kind of, and it's not that uncommon that we have laws that are written poorly.
And I mean, if you read the Texas ban on gay marriage that was passed by the voters in Texas with some ridiculous majority a few years ago, if you read that, it actually bans marriage in Texas.
Yeah. It's written.
I mean,
It's written so poorly nobody
yeah.
can get married.
It was a horribly written piece of legislation.
This is what happened. This is what happened when people on a mission very hastily tried to scratch out some protection. They could end up painting themselves into a corner, and that's what they did.
Right. Like they just passed. Someone put forward a bill in Oklahoma, I think, about
Yes.
permitting gay reparative therapy, and it reads that you can. It is legal to basically run a clinic to repress or cure yourself of any sexual attraction. So I cannot wait for someone to start a straight reparative clinic and for
Yes.
everyone to just go insane.
And what could possibly go wrong with something like this, right?
Right. Of course not. Anyway, thank you guys very much for your thoughts. I was really curious.
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate
Thanks.
it.
You have a good one.
All right. Tim in Tampa, thanks for waiting. Tim, you're on. I hope you were picking up your phone.
How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Great. I want to say, first of all, I really appreciate the show. I first
Thank you.
found this through YouTube links to some random clip of you, Matt, arguing with a theist, and I really appreciated the things you had to say.
Thank you.
And so my question is, I was raised Christian, but I left the church when I was 25, and I'm now a proud atheist. Now that I'm outside of the religious structure, I look back on the beliefs I had, and I'm very convinced that the religious beliefs I had before were quite irrational.
Mm-hmm.
So now that I feel like I'm taking a much more rational approach to life, I'm kind of torn on how hard I should try to convince theists that what they believe is wrong.
So it kind of depends on what you mean by how hard you should try. Like, I'm going to try as hard as I can, but you don't owe anybody an explanation, and you should not be forced to have a conversation that you're not comfortable with, and that's true for others as well. So
Right.
one of the things, we've joked about, hey, we don't make outgoing calls from the show, and I don't go around knocking on doors. And if somebody's having a conversation about religion at dinner, I don't tend to go over to their table and interrupt them to, tell them just how wrong I think they are. So there are times when there's no doubt that I have been an arrogant, condescending ass and incredibly strident with some people.
No, not you.
Not me, but people have that perception of me. And there are other times when I'm probably overly patient and overly willing to make concessions to try to further the conversation along, and that's because I care. I want to represent my views as best I can, and I want them to be convincing. Different people are going to be offended at different points in a conversation. There are people who are offended that we exist at all. There are people who are offended that we will not shut up. There are people who are taking offense on behalf of their God, and I think that it takes many different types. Somebody that I might not be able to reach could be reached by somebody being nicer, could be reached by somebody who was less nice. One of the most effective ways that people have found their way free of religion because of this show, based on the emails that I've received, is there are theists who would call in the past and have arguments and just get madder and madder and madder, and then they stopped calling, but they kept watching, and their goal was to prove me wrong. And that allowed them to convince themselves that they were in fact the ones that were mistaken.
Okay.
So there's no one perfect way. There's no one silver bullet argument. We need diplomats and firebrands, and perhaps some people who can do both in different situations.
Yeah. I actually recently started a podcast, started recording one. We haven't aired any of it yet, but it started out being the purpose was it was me and a Christian, and we were, having debates about things, and the original purpose was to, kind of understand each other and get a better understanding of our mutual viewpoints on issues. But the further I go, and we've recorded 5 episodes so far, the further I go, the more I really kind of just want to prove them wrong. I feel like, go ahead.
That's a little bit of a problem because it's kind of a shifting of the burden of proof.
Okay.
In some cases, it may be possible to prove someone wrong. But,
Right.
but if you adopt that stance of I'm going to prove you wrong and you fail to prove them wrong, they're going to stick with their beliefs. And
Right.
it is the case that if they have a positive claim, they are the one with the burden of proof, and they need to be the one who actually demonstrates it. So it's kind of like saying, I can't prove, right now over the course of this call that your name is actually Tim. But
Right.
my failure to prove that doesn't mean that your name is or isn't Tim. It's a completely separate issue.
Yeah.
And I am an anti-theist. I am a strong atheist. I don't believe that a God exists. And under most normative uses, I actually believe that gods don't exist. But I don't adopt that burden of proof because it's unnecessary. Because even if I'm wrong or unable to make that case, it's still the case that the theists have not made their case.
Yeah, I agree. So you think in some cases it's better to not try to force the issue of proving the positive case?
Well, if you think you can, if they've made some claim that you can demonstrate reasonably is incorrect, or then by all means, that's probably the best thing you could do is to demonstrate that it's incorrect.
Yeah.
But if you can't, and in general in conversations from my history here and in debates and other things, people tend to change their mind a little more, or a little more ready to change their mind when they feel that they have led themselves to that point, which is why I'm a huge advocate of the Socratic method of asking questions.
Right. Well, that makes sense. I won't hold you any longer. Thanks for your response.
Thanks, Tim.
Sure.
Bye.
Yeah, one of the pitfalls of trying to prove a theist wrong is that as is the case of some of the people we get email from, they get some information from bad sources, and they get themselves backed into a corner. And so what they think is this, killer disproof of something the theist has said. They whip out, something, and the theist comes back and says, "Oh, but that's not true, and here's the real deal." Right. And then they call us asking us to bail them out of a bad argument.
It's kind of funny. So I'm working on a project through Patreon, but all the videos are available for free. This isn't an advertisement for that in any way. It's on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/sansdeity, SANSDEITY, or sans.deity. And I'm producing videos that talk about and teach the arguments so that you're not actually operating off a script, you have some understanding of it. Well, we recently went and saw this movie called Patterns of Evidence, Exodus, and it is kind of a respin of the age-old argument about trying to date the Exodus. And the fact of the matter is we cannot date the Exodus. We don't have enough information to confirm that it existed at any point in time. There are bits and pieces that would lead you to a late date of 1250. There are bits and pieces that would lead you to a date of around 1450. There are some who say it should be 1650. There are even some who say it should be 2450. And when you're in that situation, the only reasonable position that I think everybody should take, including the experts, is we do not have any way to confirm that the Exodus actually happened at all, let alone date it. But instead, what some people have done is, because we don't have the evidence we would expect in this particular time frame, instead of saying, Israel Finkelstein during the movie pointed out the Exodus didn't happen at that time in that way. But others will take that and say, oh, the Exodus didn't happen. It's fiction. Now you have made a positive thing that you may not be able to prove. How do you prove that this is fiction? It's far better to just simply acknowledge that they haven't made their case yet. And so I just released a video today, actually covers that movie. There are other videos coming up soon, including pitfalls to avoid when you're engaged in those conversations and debates, things to look out for, like, are you doing it for the right reasons? Are you actually listening, to what they say and formulating response, or waiting for your turn to speak? And a bunch of stuff like that. There are mistakes that I think are common among atheists, secularists of all stripes, where they see the religious claims as absurd, and I agree. They see them as unsupported, and I agree. and then they want to go the extra step of, oh, this is a fiction, or this is clearly just a copy of this. You know, Moses stole the 10 Commandments from, you know, the Hammurabic Code. Adopting position, Jesus never existed, it was a fiction. Instead of saying we don't have enough evidence to conclude that he did, which is a big problem on its own.
Yeah.
They've made a claim that they have not supported in thousands of years, and we've had these arguments over and over again. There are occasions where I think there are people on my side of a particular issue who overstate the case, and I think it's a mistake, and I'll speak out about it. Yeah. I've made the same mistake. I've overstated things a number of times. Yeah. Well, once or twice.
Well, I think what's important too is when you're evaluating a claim, you have to consider what would have to be, what kind of evidence would we have to find in order to say that this claim is likely true or definitely true. And if you go through an examination of the evidence and you don't find that evidence, doesn't necessarily mean the claim is false, but it's a pretty good clue that, you know, that the person that's asserting that this thing is true is not on firm footing.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think I was with you. I did a show and it was talking about some descriptions of what happened in the Babylonian captivity in the Old Testament and certain events that if we look at the way it's written in the Bible and then you go back and you examine historical records, you ask yourself, what would we expect to find? And so one of the things we would expect to find is if there were Jews taken into captivity, we would expect to find some record of that in the Babylonian records. And in fact, we do. We find records that document that this happened, and so if two armies are on the battlefield and they're fighting a war, you know, usually the victor writes the history, but frequently the loser has something to say about it as well.
Yeah.
And if you go and you find the records of the side that is supposedly lost, and they document the same events, well then that's a pretty good piece of evidence that this battle took place probably mostly as written. And so these are some of the things that we, have to take a look at.
But if you have competing records,
right,
then you don't know what happened.
Yeah, then you have to look at other sources of evidence to find out what probably happened, and you may never know.
Yeah, one of the examples that I used in the video, which got released today, is I could put my phone number on the screen and X out some of the numbers, and then tell you to call me because I've given you a pattern that coincides with my number.
Yeah.
Certainly, I've posted my number and not somebody else's. If we removed the X's, we would find this. And what I think has happened, and this is speculative, when it comes to the Exodus, is that you have a number of events that are occurring at unknown points in the timeline that many years after the fact have been conflated into one narrative and embellished, because let's say your family was captive here, and famine struck the land, and so you ended up free. Well, what kind of story are you likely to tell about that? I mean, are you likely to say, we don't know what happened, but a famine happened and now we're free? Or if you had been praying to your deity to free you, would you say, yep, our God came in and smote them with a famine, and that's what freed us? I mean, this is all so straightforward, and the evidence that we find is pretty mundane. Hey, we found some evidence that there were shepherds in Goshen around this time, and we found evidence that there was, an economic collapse in Egypt around this time, and well, that's close enough to the story. You're doing this kind of crisscross to put the pieces together, and then you're saying, because we found the 4 of the 5 numbers in the telephone number, that means that we know what the telephone number is. We know that they were led by a pillar of cloud by day and fire by night.
Yeah.
And, you don't. I don't know how you demonstrate that. But we had a theist caller that was actually on this topic, and seems to have dropped. And I think that I want to go ahead and address it briefly because it's right in what we're talking about.
Okay, yeah.
And this is why the question was, is belief in God rational? And why do we think it's rational to not believe in God? And this has to do with establishing the default position on any claim. And the default position is rejection of the claim, to reserve acceptance until it's met its burden of proof. And so for the claim some God exists, the default position is to not believe that until it's met its burden of proof. Because if your default position is to believe it, then you're going to be in a position where you are now believing all claims about gods until they're disproved, which means you're believing things that are contradictory. And this is not the way you want your brain to operate, where it holds a whole bunch of contradictory ideas. So the default position is you don't believe until there's a good reason to believe. Now, what qualifies as a good reason? That's why we've had this discussion for forever, give or take. Rafael in Chino, California, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Pretty well.
Good.
Yeah. So I think you guys talked about. I think one of my questions is done, but the other one is I've been having a little bit of trouble settling in as an atheist, and I've been looking around for communities, and haven't really found any like near me or any that are like really prominent. What would be your suggestion?
Start one.
For finding that.
Start one.
Yeah, so that's the best idea. We need more communities. We need more landing places for people coming out of religion, or people who maybe weren't ever in religion but have decided that they're an atheist and want to engage with other people. I just did a quick search for Atheist Chino, California, and there's some meetups listed. I don't know necessarily how close they are to you, but if there's not any that are close, or there's not any that you like or feel meet your needs, then start one. Put an ad out on some bulletin boards, take an ad in the local paper. The Atheist Community of Austin started with a newspaper ad that invited like-minded people to meet at a coffee shop, and that moved to a beignet shop and
bagel shop.
Bagel shop, a bagel shop, and then beignets, and it grew from there. And then there's a TV show that took over the world. So it's not that hard.
That's pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah, that's how it's done.
That might be a slight exaggeration, but I'm going to stick with it for now.
And
the other thing is you can contact the national organizations, American Atheist, the Center for Inquiry, other secular humanist organizations, depending on what kind of group you want, and have them put you in touch with their state directors, who should be able to tell you about groups in your area, or if there's not a group in your area, they may be willing to help you get one up and running. Because there's a need for this pretty much everywhere. I'm sick to death of hearing from people who say, I'm the only atheist in my vicinity. No, you're absolutely not, unless you are a lone person on an island somewhere. The numbers just don't support that. But quite often when we hear from those people, not only are they not the only atheist in their group, but there's sometimes multiple groups in their area that they just didn't hear about and didn't know about it.
Yeah.
We've got to do a better job of, I guess, saying, hey, we're here. So we're here in Austin, by the way, if you're in Austin.
Yeah. And one of the questions that I wanted to talk about actually was the subjectivity of morality, but there were a couple of callers earlier that kind of fleshed that out pretty well, and I was like, oh, this would just be repetitive.
Well, yeah, we're down to about 4 minutes, so
or less.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and move on to another caller, but thanks so much for calling.
Oh, yeah, thanks. And have a good day.
You too.
All right, thanks.
All right. Jacob in Latvia.
Yeah.
How are you?
Hello. Quite nice, and you?
Good.
I'm doing pretty well.
I wanted to talk about some conversations that I have had with Christians. I'm personally an atheist.
Okay.
And, most of the times I have trouble talking with them because they really stick to the one sentence that the book says it all, and the book is the only way, and things like that. And I would like to ask for an advice. Maybe you would know how how I could explain the places that are, well, I would say wrong.
I don't think I understand the question. You want us to detail all the places where the Bible's wrong?
No. I mean, like, for example, they say that God created people in His own likeness, and at the same time, how can there be other races, for example?
So it seems to me that you've just suggested a good question to ask them. I don't know what you're looking for.
But usually doesn't. They don't really have an answer.
Yes, that's why it's a good question.
Is there a better way that I could get an answer from them?
Oh, you want, so you've come up with a question that they can't answer, and you want to know how you can get them to answer it?
Yeah.
You may not be able to.
How come?
Because their little book doesn't provide them an answer, and they're not, if they think about it and they try to think outside of their book, they don't come to anything other than what the rest of us have come up with. And see, that would be secular information. So there's tons of questions that you can ask a theist of all stripes that they can't give an answer to solidly based on their ancient text. And the reason that you ask them is not to actually get an answer, it's to expose that they don't have an answer, that this book that is supposedly giving them information about all they need to know seems to have glossed over this aspect of who we are and how we got to be who we are.
Okay. Thank you very much. There's one more thing that I would like to say.
Okay.
It's that people should understand that there is no exact religion. It's just everyone have our own point of view, and it doesn't matter what you believe or not believe. We're still human, and we still live by the laws of physics and logics and things like that, you know?
I think it does matter what you believe, but I think what you mean is that your beliefs don't have an impact on the facts about reality. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And my friend also wants to add one more thing. He's sitting by me. One second, please.
Hello. So, yeah, I'm a Christian. So, first of all, I completely disagree with what my friend just said.
Okay,
and
hang on.
The final judgment is coming soon.
Okay. Fine. So we were out of time, and I was going to try to put him on hold for the after show, but if all you want to do is screech that the final judgment is coming soon, well, enjoy that final judgment, and let me know what the exact date is so that when it doesn't happen, you can admit that you were wrong.